Are you working with an irritating coworker or colleague? And is your frustration getting to that boiling point where you're thinking about quitting or smacking them over the head? There's that thing. Or maybe
Bucket of water.
playing tricks with them, or, stealing the report. You know how that gets. Somebody becomes that object of annoyance, and maybe they created it. We're going to find out what to do today. Sarah Elliston is back on Big Blend Radio's Success Express show today to share some advice on how not to give up on getting along. Sarah is the author of the book Lessons from a Difficult Person: How to Deal with People Like Us. You can get it on Amazon, and also go to her website, sarahelliston.com. She's a faculty member of the William Glasser Institute. She's also a workshop leader and trainer, certified in values realization, parent effectiveness training, and reality therapy. You can also read her articles on blendradioandtv.com, including this one, all about don't quit if you have an irritating colleague. You don't have to quit. And it's also featured in the November through January issue of Big Blend magazine. So welcome back, Sarah. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me back.
Hey, it's always good to speak with you and get some insight on how to deal with things, because we can get to that frustrating point. And so you're working with someone, you get so annoyed, you quit, and then you say, that's it, I'm going to go work for myself. And then you start annoying yourself, and then you have to fire yourself. Okay.
Well, usually there's one in every crowd. So if you have a team of 3 people, one of them, it creates problems for the other 2. And if it's 6 people or 5 people, there's always one that is a kind of focal point of, God, I wish that person didn't do whatever it is he or she is doing. And sometimes it's just within your department, there's somebody who always does something that reminds you of your mother or your father or your great Aunt Tilly whom you hated or whatever. Some irritating habit that they have. And I said, don't quit and don't give up on getting along with them, because I think people move around because they find the environment difficult, and it may only be because somebody doesn't know they're being difficult.
And sometimes the person who wants to quit, they're at that boiling point, and sometimes doesn't want to open their mouth and say anything, and just keeps putting up with it. And if you don't take any action, you are just going to start getting really annoyed. If you don't take action within yourself or with that person, then it can get emotionally out of whack.
Yeah, I think the pressure builds up, and eventually we say something hurtful or rude or unkind, or we start gossiping about them. I think a lot of times people will try to crack a joke about something that someone says or does. And I remember one of the admins had said something about, I said something, well, I don't really have an opinion about that. And she turned to me and she said, really? I've never known you not to have an opinion. And everyone laughed. And I thought, what's that about? I thought, oh, she must think I'm really opinionated. I didn't know I was opinionated. I mean, not any more than anybody else. And I think probably I was no more opinionated than anybody else, but I always shared my opinion more than anybody else needed, probably. And so they found that difficult. She was sort of joking along. She wasn't in a position to correct my behavior. But I know that when you read a book on how to get along with difficult people, they'll say, well, if you can crack a joke around it, if someone's complaining all the time or whatever they're doing, if you can make it into a joke, it will lessen the tension. But it doesn't solve the problem. And it puts you in the position of being superior to the other person, which isn't comfortable. It doesn't help the relationship.
It is interesting. I still have to go back to the man, one of my bosses, that just kept smacking the stapler. Every time he passed the person's desk, he'd hit their stapler. It was really, really annoying. And everybody would go in the break room, and that's what they talked about. And then all these practical jokes came out of that, like remove the stapler, put something else where the stapler used to be, and he would hit it. And it would. So this one guy was like, those what do you call those spindle things with the big nail thingy or a sharp thing that pokes out where you put
Yeah,
your
yeah,
seed?
that you put your paper over. Yeah,
Yeah,
put your messages.
yeah. So he went and got one of those, and we're like, "Uh-oh, this is going to go bad." But it was interesting how everybody kind of, you know, rallied together against this one boss. He wasn't he was like second to the boss, but he was powerful in his position, and and nobody ever wanted to sit down and say to him, "Could you please stop? Please, it disrupts the whole entire office and your concentration, because normally your back would be to him and you're typing, and boom, there goes the stapler, and it was so annoying. It still annoys me right now today.
I can tell.
Wow.
I don't blame you. And it's because the person who owned the desk that had the stapler on it wasn't able to put a big sign up that says "Stop hitting my stapler."
Yeah.
or even speak to the person about it.
Why? Yeah. And then when you had to talk to him on something else that was part of your job, you could barely see your way clear to do that, because all you could see was the hand in the stapler.
The hand.
Fascinating. Yeah. I did work for someone who had a horrible laugh. She thought it was great. It was nice and loud and went up and down the scale, but it made all of our teeth itch. Teeth itch? How many? Everybody on staff just, ugh. You could hear her all over the offices when she would laugh, and she thought it was a great laugh. And there was nothing we could do. I mean, there was no way I was going to say to her, "Do you know that your laugh really just destroys us? It's just too loud and it's not very attractive." I wasn't going to say that to my boss.
No.
I just didn't. But it really,
isn't that weird?
Well,
was annoying.
You know, when you think about it, there's a lot. I mean, everybody's got an annoying thing. I mean, people that are madly in love, eventually what you really loved becomes the most annoying thing.
Yes, that's true.
You know, I remember the first time you came on the show and we talked about, Nancy and I can't stand crunching.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, go to your room. Go with that. If you're going to crunch, that's it. You know, we were just weird that way.
Something on your teeth, like crunching pretzels or something?
Or when you like if
crunching ice is the
worst.
Oh, yes, I do.
You're out. You know, everybody has these little things, and there's always a weird thing about it. And sometimes you have to deal with it, and sometimes not. And I think what's interesting at work, in work environments, I was just at a store, and these two employees, the one dragged the other one in, just whining about customers, and I felt like just saying, you know,
I'm standing here.
You know, well, you suck too, and whining about management, and then here it became this big whiny pity party where nothing positive was coming out of it. It was just, I wanted to go up and say, if it's so bad, go home. You know, quit. I didn't read your article yet. I should have brought your book. Should have said, hey, you need to read Sarah's book. But it was breeding. You could see it like just start to go. It's like it stinks. You know, it's like that's the thing that annoys me. People with really stinky perfume. It makes me sick. So you're locked in an office environment and they have to smell that every day, get sick every day over it. And that's exactly what this kind of negativity, like nye, 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 nye. And some people will just sit and take it, and then it starts. Now everybody becomes the perfume fume. That's why fume is in that word.
Maybe so.
Wow.
I know. Well, of course, it's parfum. You know, originally there's no E on the end of it, but anyway. I was thinking, you know, what happened with her laugh, and I think someone must have talked her into closing her door. Someone that was closer to her, whom she trusted more, because, of course, towards the end of the time that she worked with us, she wasn't very happy. But I don't remember hearing her laugh after the first year or two. So I think what happened is that she learned to close her door. Someone just said, you know, yes, you have a wonderful laugh. It's really loud and explosive, and it's kind of distracting. So maybe when you're talking to someone on the phone like that, you could close the door. Would that be a problem? And I don't know who it was, but managed to describe the laugh without saying it's driving the rest of us crazy. But something else I was going to say.
about the perfume and the crunchy and the negativity and.
Well, I was thinking when the thing that we like the most at first is the thing that starts to drive us crazy. My ex-husband is a tremendous storyteller. He's really good at it. And I loved it when I first met him because I was hearing all these stories. But after 25 years, I sort of heard them all. And he'd start to tell a story. I didn't interrupt it and tell it for him. I knew that was not cool. But I would find other things to do. And I would be a little jealous that he was so good at telling stories. And so you're right. Sometimes something that attracts us, then eventually it starts to gnaw at us. And now I appreciate his stories fine. I mean, I love him. And of course, I'm not married to him, but
you've got the distance between the stories.
I got some distance, and I can appreciate that he is really good at it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to just watch his process. His father was really good at it too, but I was such a angry feminist when I knew his father. I wouldn't give him an inch. He'd say, "Where's the tea?" And I'd say, "Well, the kettle's right there. You could turn the gas on underneath it."
You got
legs, start. Right? You'd expect the women to do it. And this man was wonderful. There was no reason for me to be such a snit, but I was.
Well, I think there's this balance, and it's learning how to balance what to do with the emotion of it, the reaction, and that's where the immediate reaction. I'm still, boy, do I have a lot to learn on that, because it's like, especially like when you do things like what we do, everything's a quick reaction, and then you can have the most explosive, horrible reaction that's way off kilter, but that can be that way. And I think in an office environment, I've been through some places where somebody stole my deal, and I'm like, dude, what's with that? And it was like, no, it's fine. You're just a young woman that came in, and that's that, and I got so furious, and my anger would turn to tears, and I'm like, oh no, because now they're going to think I'm a weak young girl. Right? I'm not. I'm going to battle you out, man. Let's have an arm wrestling thing. I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated. And then, then you become the difficult one, and you don't want to be, but listen, this isn't right.
And then you get real sneaky and pay back.
And so here's where all this drama starts in an office.
I didn't suggest that.
But what happens when the difficult person, that just the whiner, do you listen to the whining? Do you walk away? Do you say, listen, shut your pie hole? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding you. Do not talk that way in a workplace at all.
Right. I do have that people would do that to me. They would just listen to me when I complained. I can remember there was one woman I worked with. We would be doing trainings together, and so we would come together to sort of talk about it and plan it. And I would come in from some kind of a meeting, and the first 10 minutes of our meeting would be going, why did he do it this way? You can't do it right. This is the wrong way. And she just listened. And I have no idea to this day whether she thought I was a crazy ass person and why would they employ someone like me, or whether she just thought, well, Sam's just got to get this off her chest now. But we did it for a number of years, and I realized that she just listened to me. She didn't agree with me. She didn't ask me questions, to prolong my rage or my rant. But she just listened. And boy, that's certainly, if you have the time.
And the temperament.
Yes. Well, I don't think any of us get hurt by listening. And I think that our world right now needs many more of us to be listening.
Well, I think we move so fast, and everything is on speed dial. Everything is how fast can you go, that I think the art of fully communicating and actually letting a person think before they actually speak instead of, well, come on, and cutting them off and interrupting, which happens all the time everywhere, is you're in this, like you're riding on a motorcycle and you're going that many miles per hour and you're going fast. But when you're communicating, I think we all really need to slow down. And we don't.
Well, there were some people, I think, that were on staff with me that I complained to, and they listened to me and didn't. It was always done in such a way that I could have gone on and on for hours, and if they'd asked me questions, I would have, but they didn't ask me questions. They just sort of like, Sam's having her little rant now, so I had my little rant. Well, when I discovered later that they didn't really agree with me, it really hurt my feelings. Now, the individual that I was training with, that never happened. I don't know where she is now, but that some of the people that I was closer to on staff and said, "Did you see what she just did?" And that should never be happening. And then discovered, like 6 months later, that I was clearly in the minority about some activity, and it really hurt my feelings, and I felt betrayed. It didn't stop me from ranting either. I think
it gave you another reason to rant.
I think, not to them though.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there is when people don't tell you, hey, then it's almost like that other people, now you've created a gossip scenario, and that now you're the object of that, and not knowingly, and not meaning to. And so what we may find irritating may not be irritating to some others. You may not mean it. I'm not saying you specifically, Sarah.
No, I understand. But I think what often happens, though, is that someone is doing something, and whatever it is, and maybe say it was somebody's ranting the way I am and complaining all the time, the rest of the team or the people in the office start, they try to joke it along. They try to maybe help the person solve it. And they say, what is this person's problem? Why does she do this? Oh, well, she must be having problems in her marriage, or she must have had an accident on the way in, or what's going on? She's really a sick person. We start judging and criticizing and trying to figure out why people do this, and that doesn't help either, because it starts questioning the other person. And you know what? Nobody changes unless they feel completely accepted. Nobody changes unless they feel that somebody who is maybe suggesting a change is in their corner, is on their side, has their best interests at heart. And so for me, it's simple. I don't think I say this in the article, but the simple truth is we do what we do because it's a habit and nobody's told us to stop. Or if they've told us to stop, they did what my boss did, which is to say, you could work on your communication skills. And I thought, I wonder what she means by that, because I think I'm a very clear communicator. And what she meant was, it would be nice if you'd stop arguing with everybody in leadership roles and stop speaking up so much in all these meetings that we go to. I mean, you're one of 16 people on the staff. You don't need to talk at every meeting. But I always had lots of questions. I remember one manager who came to me and she said, if you have questions, come to me after the meeting. And I started doing that. So that must have helped it for people. But nobody said stop asking questions. And of course, my boss, who kept saying to me, oh, I understand you. You're just like my sister, and I really like working for you. She'd say that in one part of the performance review, and then later when we were going over the different skills and ranking them or whatever to show what kind of a raise I was going to get or not get, communication was always the one that got marked down. And I thought, I never understood it. And I remember asking her once or twice, and she could not answer it. She was the nicest woman in the world. I wanted to be like her more than anything else, but I couldn't be because she's just too happy. I was not a happy person. That's interesting, because that's what I was saying. It's hard for people sometimes to speak up. I mean, because
how they were raised and how they are as a human being. They don't want to hurt someone's feelings. They don't want to be the person putting their foot in it. They don't want to have an argument.
Until she met with me in February, because she was going to be retiring in June. And she met with me and said, I wanted to just meet with you and tell you what a joy it's been to work with you and blah, blah, blah. And to tell you, don't bother applying for my job, because everybody I have worked for, she'd worked for like 3 or 4 people, during the 8 years I worked for her. But everybody I've worked for has wanted me to find you a way to work somewhere else so that you weren't working here. They want me to fire you, but they wanted me to find you a better job somewhere else. And I was flabbergasted. I started to cry. I sat in the cafeteria with my back to the rest of the room and cried for an hour because I couldn't believe it. But 8 years we've been doing this. This is the first time I'd heard anything like this. And she was finally able to be more concrete. She said, well, you argue and you sometimes you ask questions in such an aggressive way that, or direct, a direct way that people feel threatened. And she made some really concrete, she gave me some examples of things that she had seen. And I thought, why didn't you tell me? I mean, I was furious. It took me years to forgive her. But then, of course, in June when she retired, she called me and she said, I just wanted to tell you how wonderful it's been working with you these last couple of months. You've completely changed and people have been talking about it. And I wanted to say to her, well, if you told me the first year, we would have had 8 years of this, but I didn't, but she wasn't able to do it until she knew she was leaving and that I was just going to get into more trouble.
Wow.
And so, I appreciated her telling me, but I wish she had told me earlier. And what you're saying is true. She was so nice. There was no way she knew how to weave it into the performance review. She hated doing them anyway. And she did honestly like me and liked the work that I was doing. So, because I said, how did you keep from not firing me? And she said, oh, you're really good at your job. And I pointed it out. Most of the work I was doing was outside of the organization with clients and customers. So that was her way of, but so if you're in a situation where you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or you understand why they do what they do, but it's still driving everybody crazy, or your boss is telling you to get rid of this employee or colleague or whoever, then I really encourage you to be specific and concrete and non-judgmental about how you describe the behavior and tell them that it needs to change.
Yeah, I think you say in your article too about, befriend them because, again, like you're saying, people aren't going to change or take it seriously, or they'll be argumentative if they don't feel that you're in their corner. And I think that's a really true thing, because then it's just like, oh, you're just saying that because of this, or then it becomes this thing. And it's true. Everybody is doing something for some reason that you may never know.
But you need to get defensive. When you feel attacked, you get defensive.
I've been
once the defenses are up, then it's really hard to get your point across.
I learned really at a young age about people being rude and mean, and it's still like when people are mean, it's just like it's always it's like a slap in the face. It's like, what, just being an advertising salesperson. We're not the devil, people. We're just trying to help you spread the word. But going, I've done the door-to-door of businesses. I've done all of that in a lot of different ways. In sales, in actual things, people, nothing weird. But there are people, like I remember this one lady, and she is part of a winery, and she called us and she asked me to come to her winery where she has this art gallery and please bring our magazines. This is back in our print days. And please, she would like to do all these things. And so I set up an appointment and I drove over an hour to get to her. I went there and she started swearing at me and told me to take my magazines and where to go and all of these things.
Oh, dear.
Now you go to certain that happens. There was a string of type of businesses at a specific time. Now that industry is doing very well, but you would go in, you'd walk in, and if you say anything, they would basically tell you, there's the door, and sometimes in the most horrible way. And you're not, and even car salespeople are actually pretty cool. Thank you very much. It's that whole thing. As a very young girl, if the first thing was you're just flabbergasted. Come to realize down the road, well, that winemaker lady, they went out of business.
Yep.
Like not even a month later, found out the entire town hated this woman. Yeah. And it was actually the winemaker, that was his wife, and he basically wouldn't let her touch the business again. And I mean, the entire town. And she was rude to anybody walking in the door. And the other string of type of businesses I'm talking about, I just don't want to knock the industry because it's a really cool thing that they're doing. People weren't getting them at that time. And they were all rude because they were struggling financially when that's what they really needed was some marketing. But financially, they didn't want to say, I can't afford to do anything because that's embarrassing. So you never know what's going on. That's my point, where people they have those weird things that may irritate people, or they're frustrating, maybe they're angry all the time. Something could be going on that you have no clue about.
And it doesn't really matter. I mean, we can be empathetic. I mean, of course, we're talking about empathy now. It's like this brand new word in management training. It's like everybody has to be empathetic, and people don't really understand the difference between empathy and owning somebody else's problem. So I say it doesn't matter. Of course, it matters whatever that person's going through. But in your communications with that person, what you're saying is, I care about you. I care about the work that you do. And when you do this, it's driving the rest of us crazy. Or the clients perceive you as rude. I don't think you're doing it on purpose. I don't think you're trying to push people away. But this is the result. Can we talk about it? Can you change? That kind of thing. And if your difficult person then says, well, we're going out of business, or nobody's buying our advertisements, or I'm really under a lot of stress, you say, no problem. And then if it really is your colleague and not someone you're just trying to sell to, you say, no problem. And yet it has having this impact on the rest of us, or maybe, if my boss had said to me, do you know that the new VP, maybe that was the second person that had tried to get rid of me, you need to know that he is encouraging me to find a place for you outside of the organization. I mean, if she'd had the guts to do that, to say that, so because your style is so direct and it feels confrontive. And of course, he was from the South, and so of course we didn't really mesh. And if she had said that to me, I mean, I trusted her. I would have believed her. I would have said, "Okay, tell me what to say or do." Maybe I would have. But
I think when you know someone, they can just take you aside. Hey, you know what? This is kind of how it feels, and I just want you to have a heads up that I don't look at you this way necessarily, but this is what's going on, or but you have affected me, or something. You can say actually it has affected me. Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if it didn't really affect her, because she said I was just like her sister. Well, it turns out her sister's a recovering alcoholic, is very aggressive and loud, and has very opinionated. And of course, I love her sister. The minute I met her, we were like buds, because we were exactly alike. But I still didn't get it then. It was before the 8 years were up, and I still didn't get it. So the making friends kind of process of it's. I try to practice it when I'm in the grocery store and somebody's child is crying. And, if you're the parent, it's driving everyone else crazy. And I've seen this, I've started going to do some therapy for my knee in a pool. And I sometimes go when there are little families there also. And one of the babies will start crying or something. And I always smile at the mom and say, long day, or maybe she needs a nap, or some people are never pleased. You know, trying to sort of, not so much of a joke, but just like, hey, I'm in your corner. I've been there.
Yeah,
and
we
I've done
understand.
that. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
done that in the grocery line when somebody's going, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." I usually try to say, wow, you really want that candy bar, don't you? And of course, the child will look at me and say, who the heck are you? But they don't usually say it, but they think it. And mom then will chime in, and sometimes it de-escalates the problem, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's that effort to say, I've been where you've been, or I understand where you're at, and I'm not judging you for it. Because especially with young children, I know as a young mother, I was like, everyone's looking at me. I'm doing something wrong, and my child is acting out. You know, that kind of thing. I don't know if you've ever felt that.
No. I think, but it's about
children in the grocery store.
It's
just asking for
well,
it.
just kind of kind of giving someone a chance first before you know what I mean. Giving people a chance to
Right.
you know, we're not perfect. Human beings are not perfect, and it would be boring if we were.
I suggest that we look at them differently. So if someone is you were saying that you did that with these people who, like the wife of the wine person, who was so grouchy all the time.
Wow.
I mean, if you look at her and say, well, poor thing, her business is falling apart underneath her. No wonder she's in a bad mood. That's one thing. The other thought would be somebody who is always arguing with the boss or nitpicking, to be able to say, wow, you're really good at detail. You see all the different ins and outs.
Don't look at me, Nancy.
I didn't. I purposely looked away.
Which told me that you're looking at me.
If you look for a positive reason that someone's doing whatever they're doing, and it's not always easy, because if we label it rude, then we can't. It's harder to do. If we look and just say, this is the words she's saying, these are the actions she's taking, then you can say, well, what she's really doing is seeing every side of an issue. It can become annoying, but it is really a skill. And I can appreciate that she can see all the sides. Is that sort of what happens between the two of you?
We're interesting. We just say it. We just say it. I think our world is too fast and too like move, and then we have our moments where you chill out, and then we have our moments where we like say it, and we're pretty loud about it, and then we get over it.
Well, you have a long-term relationship, but if you had a new admin or a new secretary that came in to work with you for like 3 months before when do you start traveling?
May to probably end of April. Yeah,
end of April.
Yeah, April.
Okay,
April,
so
May.
Say from January to April, you hire someone to come in and help you do all the little nuts and bolts and paperwork and things, and she has some egregious habit. Maybe every third word is she sniffs, or maybe she coughs all the time, or maybe she walks by and hits your stapler. Who knows what she does?
No.
But you would start to look for ways that you could say to her, the stapler thing, I can't figure that one out. I think what I would have said was, I really like the way you get your physical fitness on my stapler, but my stapler is suffering. Can I give you a pillow instead, or something? But to look at it without being critical.
I think if we had a difficult person walking in now, and if someone did something, I would just kind of go, stop it. Because I'm very much like, don't disrupt the flow, the energy. It's crucial to have positive, good energy, and there's stuff that goes down, and that's the reason why. Don't cry wolf. Don't have, you know what I mean? Don't disrupt. So, I mean, if it's something annoying like the stapler or that kind of thing, I would just say, you know what? I can't stand it. Stop it.
Stop it. That's what I said.
I can't help it.
Yeah,
but
because
I would
it's driving you crazy.
I just go, I can't work this way.
I also had a boss. I also had a boss who took his false teeth out and cleaned them with a pencil eraser in front of everybody.
Okay, wow.
Now,
that really is gross.
That really, really freaked us all
I feel like
out.
some of these stories we're watching Mad Men.
No, one of the salesmen called him up, and we all knew this was going to happen. He called him up and said, "This is God speaking. Stop it."
And did he stop?
No.
Oh dear.
Well, that
But it was really,
that's
work.
pretty funny though.
But it was funny. But I mean, it was just, and I think that working with people, especially, I think offices sometimes, obviously they're expensive to run, are way too small. And you're crunched in too close together. You see and hear things that you really shouldn't. And it's just really, it's not like they hire people that they know will all get along with each other. They hire for specific purposes, for specific jobs. And there isn't really a lot of attention given to, is this person going to mix well with the others? Because you don't really know.
And you can't sit there and have there's a manual. I remember, when we did our musical organ jobs when we got here. Yeah, you have a manual, and they're like, you cannot chew gum, you cannot do this because this annoys our clientele. This isn't, our clientele at the time. That was like a no. That's rude. Now people are walking around chewing gum in everyone's face, and now I find that annoying.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because it just put me in that zone of that. But you can have all the manuals you want. Don't do this, don't do that. But then you're stifling people to not be creative and not take ownership of things. Like a company, there's that interesting balance of management, leadership, and employees working together and having to balance that out. It's very interesting because you want people to feel comfortable to take on responsibility, to take on tasks, take a risk with something. And if it's the same thing, I think, with what you're talking about. If an employee doesn't feel like the company has their backbone, they're never going to jump out and do that extra special thing that really helps the company move forward. And because of fear of failure, because the company maybe is like, you will go by the book to the hair. You know what I mean? There has to be that balance between rules and regulations and freedom to be a person, to be able to do
yourself.
I don't know if you know Brene Brown. She is a professor from Houston. She does a lot of work in sociology. She wrote Dare to, I've forgotten what the first one was. Right now, she's just published a book on Dare to Lead. She's done all this research on vulnerability and basically says, unless you're able to be vulnerable, you can't really move ahead. And she's now talking to businesses and saying, if you want, and I'm validating what you were just saying, if you want your employees to be creative and ask questions and have new ideas, you have to be vulnerable. You have to share who you are. Daring Greatly was her first one. That's the one I read. I just love it. And she's written quite a few. But this new one is just Dare to Lead, and I just heard her on the radio talking about it. And she was basically saying what you just said. People will not perform. They will not be creative and look for new ways if they think they're going to get put down, or they have to do it within the stereotypical, it has to fit in a certain box. It just doesn't work. And of course, the leader has to start. And being vulnerable does not mean you have to talk about the most deepest secrets in your life.
No.
It does mean that you acknowledge when you think you made a mistake. And that's what it seems like people are unwilling to do in a lot of cases.
I think it's important that people are it's honest and having that integrity, right? Go back to the 8 keys of excellence with that. It's like, here, being honest with each other. No, you don't need to tell the whole family story. We've been in a group meeting, teamwork exercises and ropes courses and all of that. And, next thing you know, everybody's in tears and telling things and you look around and you're just like, what now? It was horrible. It was like everyone's talking about this person dying, this person did that. I mean, the facilitator started, crying when he's telling the story. He ran over a kid when he was drunk. I mean, and then everybody starts crying and carrying on. It was like, what are we in here? And I'm like going, geez, you should have seen what we just left in Africa, and you guys need to stop it now, because just stop it. It's ridiculous. And it was the most, that was beyond, that shouldn't have been that way. Where
and now climb the telephone pole and jump
everybody's
off for
and
a
some
trust fall.
There's this percentage of the group that start the giggles because they're watching everybody cry and they don't know what to do. And then people are like, start creating stories because one story is bigger than the other,
No, but think about that. Then shortly afterwards, you climb up that big pole and you're supposed to jump off
the trust fall.
The trust fall, and the people that you just spent hours listening to are supposed to catch you. And of course, you have harness and ropes and everything, so pretty much you're not supposed to like kill yourself. But then you're looking around like, I don't think I'm jumping.
Yeah. I mean, so we're not talking about that, right, Sarah?
No. Well, the other thing is that the
with a big no.
Well, we're not talking about sending where it's done in such a way that everyone's standing back saying, this is weird, what are we doing? Because I've been on some like high ropes courses where they do these exercises before you start. And the person facilitating it is the one that has to be really careful to make sure that they say, the tears are the healing, so tears are okay, but, not everybody is expected to cry. It's not part of the work. And just to lay those kinds of ground rules, if you will. Here's something that I just found a quote from Brene Brown for her book. She says, daring leaders who live into their values are never silent about the hard things. So, for example, my boss was not daring until she was leaving. So she felt it was only fair to tell me. But up until that time, she did not have the courage to tell me, because maybe I'd get mad, maybe I'd cry, maybe I'd blow up, maybe I'd storm into the vice president's office and say, what do you mean? I don't get along well with people or something. Who knows what she thought I was going to do, but it was simpler not to speak to it. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of being vulnerable is living your values. But it doesn't mean that you have to go and talk about your deepest secret or your hardest hurt. But what you're describing is what a lot of the organizations that thought this is what team building is, if we do stuff like this.
Yeah.
And, I did it with a board of trustees once, where we did a blind walk, where one person was blindfolded and the other person was their sighted person. And we did half an hour each way, so it took a whole hour of an afternoon. And they were able to pull from it some messages that they could carry into, or learnings that they could carry into their work together as a team. But one of them in their evaluation said, I don't know why we had to spend a whole hour on this blind walk thing. That's what she wrote in it. And I could tell it didn't mean much to her, but at the same time, she was willing to go along with some of the lessons or some of the guidelines that they decided they would work by. That they had distilled from the experience of what it's like to be dependent and what it's like to be responsible, so that they wouldn't be expecting too much of their leader, for example. And so they would be able to help each other the way you do if you're helping someone who's blind.
I think these courses and are important. But I think we just had it was crazy. It was a crazy
one. Yeah, you had a real interesting experience. What year was that? Do you remember?
That was back in 93, 94, 94, 95, 94, 95, I'd say. Yeah, 95. And around about that time. But you're also, all of us are musicians, so you're dealing with a different group of people going into a kind of corporate world, all with some really fascinating backgrounds. So I'm just going to say that, and not bad.
Well, very creative people.
So
that the company expected to make money off of you being creative, but they had a whole lot of rules.
Yeah,
and creative people don't always react well to rules.
And so there are
No.
also musicians that kind of gave up their careers to do that, and it was just there was a lot of weird mind games going on with the company itself. What they were trying to do, they would always try to make the salespeople spend their money so that they would make more money. All kinds of crazy, that company. I don't even want to talk about that company. It was terrible.
Yeah. Well,
it was really
sounds like
bad.
it was a difficult experience.
It was a whole experience. I could write a book on that experience. But it was interesting, and I learned a bunch. So it was definitely an interesting thing. But Sarah, great article, everyone. She goes into detail of what to do and what not to do when you're in that experience. And Sarah's article and other articles are up on blendradioandtv.com. And also this article is also featured in the November through January issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. Again, also available at blendradioandtv.com. But here's the deal. Go get her book, Lessons from a Difficult Person, How to Deal with People Like Us, again by Sarah Elliston. And you can go to her website, sarahelliston.com. Sarah, I hear a rumor that you may be putting pen to paper again soon. Am I allowed to? Is that rumor true? Am I allowed to bring up the rumor?
Well, it is a rumor. I've moved it to March. I was going to go to start working on it in November, and I'm going to do it in March because I still have some work to do on the present book. Where my head just went to in the last 2 weeks, I went to the fact that women don't have a way of explaining to men how some of the things they do feel offensive or uncomfortable. Because generational or for whatever reason, so that we have, adult males saying, oh, boys will be boys, they're just teenagers, whatever. And we need to learn. I think my process of dealing with difficult people can really be helpful for women to learn how to say to a man that they work with or live next to, or is their brother or somebody, to say, when you say that, it demeans me, and I don't think you do it on purpose. I don't think you're aware. When you introduce me as this, young lady, and I'm 50 years old, do you realize that you are putting me down?
My mom used to say that. My mom used to say that all the time.
Well, there's a
generation of women who use that as a way of raising children, where the boys always come first. And that generation comes right after World War II. Sorry, people, but there's that thinking, giving men an excuse for bad behavior.
Right.
Boys will be
boys.
Well,
I would like to invite all of us, and I'm of that generation, but I didn't have a boy in my family, so I didn't experience what you're talking about. But I would invite all of us and all the women who come after us to, instead of getting angry, even though I think protesting is really, really healthy, and I think we can protest without raging, I think in our personal relationships, to be able to turn to a gentleman at dinner who is your husband's boss, who puts his hand on your wrist or your shoulder and say, or your leg, or whatever, to say, do you know that is offensive to women? That's you're acting like we're more familiar than we are. And he'll say, what are you talking about? And that starts the conversation.
It's an interesting way to do it. And it maybe take the emotion out, because that's where it becomes this emotional thing for us. And it could be.
I think men get so defensive instantly. Well, I was just being nice. I was just being friendly.
And women could be freaked out at the time, emotionally freaked out.
It's like being patted on the head like you're a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I've had that a lot.
That pat on the head.
Too.
I hate the pat on the head.
Oh, there you go.
Nobody patted me on the head, but they tried.
No patting.
No patting. Keep your hands to yourself.
Anyway, so that's where I've been thinking about sort of writing some articles and sort of thinking about this as a way to maybe help for so many of us who are part of the Me Too movement, to be able to talk about it, first of all, and then be able to speak to the men in our lives that re-stimulate it all the time, so that we can get over it, and they might be able to change. I mean, there are some men that will never change. I got that.
This
but
is true.
I think it could be useful. What do you think? Does it sound like that?
I think it's very timely. I think because there's a communication that the doors are more open now than they have been for a discussion. And I think that whatever tools women can have and men can have to understand is an important thing. And I also believe that it's part of how women communicate with each other. Just like what Nancy said, well, my mom used to say this. And so there's a communication that needs to happen between women as well and among women. I think that the women need to talk with women. And I think that has to happen too. Women need to talk with women. Women need to talk to men, and there has to be a conversation, not a conversation. And coming from that place, just like we talked about today, of being in their corner of like, I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to create drama. I'm trying to be on a page where we can continue to have a nice dinner, that kind of thing. Being able to be strong, and have a have a conversation. Strong, not putting down. You know what I mean? There's that balance of being able to do it.
Being clear.
Yeah, and I think it's
still do it in a quiet tone of voice.
And I think it's difficult for some women if they've been through some issues, past issues, that it's difficult, and sometimes it'll come off more emotional than it should. So I think that it's good. I think this is good, and it's timely.
Okay. Well, that's where my head is going.
Get going,
right
girl. Get going.
I think it will spark some interesting conversations, because we all know, like, as a woman, if you put your hand on a man's shoulder, he thinks, oh, hey, look at that.
And that's not true either. Yeah.
So, but isn't that the same behavior?
But there are like women who do that. So there's that side too of women doing that manipulation side of it as well. So we look at it.
Learn to do. Sure.
Yep. Exactly. So there's a lot to cover. That's a big book to write. The more I think of it, I'm like, you got the workplace situation, you got the boss, you got the younger generation, you got that's a big book, and that's going to be, I think it's really good.
Well, I'm not sure it's going to be a book. I think it's going to be some articles, and then I want to try to run, have some workshops and just find out what other people think.
Okay, cool.
Invite people to come and say, let's talk about, would this work? Anyway. And then I don't know if that'll be the book or not, because I think probably people will be writing millions of books. But I just feel that the process that I've sort of evolved, it's certainly not unique to me, but where it takes the emotion out of it and invites you to, as you say, be in their corner and not be critical of them while they're doing what they're doing. I think that allows for a conversation. And that's what I think we need. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm going to listen to Mr.
You're going to listen to your song today. Your song today is Worth Saving, and it is from Richard Lynch. And the Richard Lynch Band, everybody, this is some authentic country music. Go to richardlynchband.com. And this is from his latest album, Mending Fences, and it's worth saving. See, he goes around saving barns, but worth saving can be relationships, and it was just exactly what you were talking about. Don't quit. Take a look at like this. This person may be one of it could be your co-pilot. You got to get along with your co-pilot, dude. You can't toss anybody from a plane as much as you want to, even if there's snakes on it. You got to get through it. So everybody, again, keep up with Sarah at sarahelliston.com. We want to thank everyone for joining in here at Big Blend Radio. If you go to bigblendradio.com, you'll see our schedule. You can listen as shows go live or anytime at your leisure. Thanks so much for joining us, Sarah.
Oh, you're welcome. I had a great time.
Always good chatting with you. Here it is, everybody. Worth Saving by the Richard Lynch Band.
Picture a place where many years have gone by. a Michigan winter, and the deep blue sky. That cold north wind couldn't bring it down. Not every place was meant to be in town. This old barn is where I used to play. This old barn is where my grandpa prayed. So if you tear it down, it won't be coming back around. There's so much real country charm in this old barn. Hand-hewed beams and them old dirt floors, old leather tack hanging from a rough sawed board. And you can still read that old faded sign, hardware flour and the 5 and dime. This old barn is where I used to play. This old barn is where my grandpa prayed. So if you tear it down, it won't be coming back around. There's so much real country charm in this old barn. These words I'm saying, then you'll know this barn's worth saving. This old barn, you know it's worth saving.